we're back in Los Angeles, where we've been talking to actor John Cusack about the role of an artist in an election year. So how are other celebrities using their cultural power and access to media to influence the campaign? Here's Richard GIZBERT with this week's Election Post.
This election cycle has seen celebrities throwing their weight behind presidential candidates like never before. And with the Democratic campaign dragging on much longer than expected, the candidates need all the support they can get. And celebrities, with the aura of glamour that they lend, the extra media space they afford, not to mention the cash they can bring in, are valuable political commodities. It's called star power. This past week, the influential liberal U.S. blog The Huffington Post listed the top 10 celebrities weighing in for Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. In Obama's corner, Hollywood A-listers George Clooney and Robert De Niro, pop musician will.i.am, and the jewel in his celebrity crown, talk show host Oprah Winfrey. Backing Clinton, superstar musicians Barbra Streisand and Elton John, talk show host Ellen DeGeneres, and Desperate Housewives TV star Eva Longoria.
You want as many people saying good things about you as possible at all times, and the broader the platform of those people, then the better.
One person has made me believe that we can make a change. That person is Barack Obama.
The more that you can create this kind of ubiquitous sensation that people are supporting your candidacy, the more that's going to be helpful.
I like McCain a lot. A lot.
It's not just a case of cheerleading. A celebrity endorsement translates into valuable media space and time. It gets the candidate's message on the air.
I like that you have solutions. And that's why we love you, Hillary. That's why.
They attract attention to you at periods during the campaign and attention to your press conferences or your appearances in a town if they accompany you, and their appeal attracts more media attention to that event.
But do the endorsements actually bring in votes?
Will Oprah Winfrey's ability to draw a crowd, we're talking 60,000 people turning out in all, translate into votes for Barack Obama?
A survey last year by ABC News and The Washington Post found that 8 out of 10 Americans said an endorsement by Oprah Winfrey would not influence their decision. The candidates know that, but for them, it's also about the money.
I think the courting of Hollywood is perhaps foremost a financial motive.
You have a chance to make history by electing Hillary Clinton, the next president of the United States.
These celebrities who are endorsing these candidates are able to open their Hollywood homes and take in millions of dollars very quickly. Elton John had a concert for Hillary Clinton. One night raised $2.5 million.
Hillary should be the next president of America.
Their presence at a fundraiser will draw other people with money, and that money is translated into the ability to buy television time to present yourself to the people, which is what's important to the candidate. And it costs a fortune to run a national campaign in this country.
The candidates profit, but there could be a downside for the celebrities. A poll by CBS News taken soon after the Oprah endorsement of Obama showed that her favorability ratings fell from 74 to 61%. Right-wing commentator Michelle Malkin drove home that point on Fox News.
There are a lot of folks who are chastising her for cramming politics down their throats. They want somebody who's going to tell them about new recipes and how Halle Berry is decorating her nursery, and they don't want a preachifying, hyper-political person.
Most agents for celebrated people fight like hell to get them not to make political endorsements.
Who do I think will be, or who do I want to be? Barack Obama.
Especially for Hollywood types, where your celebrity was created in a world of fantasy. And the agents will argue with them, you don't want to step off of that stage and ask yourself to be judged in a real world of politics.
Compared to Obama and Clinton, Republican candidate John McCain has relatively few star backers, but one he does have happens to embody the merging of celebrity with the American body politic.
He's a great American hero and an extraordinary leader. And this is why I'm endorsing him to be our next president of the United States. So let's hear from Senator McCain. Thank you very much.
An actor turned politician who one day may himself audition for the White House job. And we'll be back here at the Election Post later in the campaign with more on the media and the U.S. vote.
We're back having a long chat with John Cusack. Thanks for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure.
We've been talking about the privatization of war and military contractors and the subject of your scathing satire, War, Inc. And you've said that you think this is the fundamental issue of our time as an American.
I think so, you know, without, not that I would have any expert knowledge on what the issue is, but I think it's an issue that I think is, it's the most radical departure from the way America's been going.
Is it playing out in other ways
I think
apart from in Iraq?
You know, I think that it's so clear that, that there's just two sets of standards. And the great irony is that the Republicans are the biggest welfare freaks on the planet. I mean, they represent their constituency as absolutely publicly subsidized private companies.
And yet, when you're trying
Bush
to
has run up the biggest deficit. He's expanded government in more ways.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just absolutely hypocritical. I think what they don't want to do is, you can't have any size government that actually helps people but not corporate profits. Everything has to follow into this idea that the money goes to the top and then it'll trickle down like a great, you know, river to the unwashed, and then the garden will grow. And I think you can see it very clearly in the mortgage crisis. So when, you know, as these mortgages and these foreclosures are happening, well, that's the free market, the homeowners are told, right? We all have to live by the free market. But when you're Bear Stearns, you get the bailout from the government. So it's a complete, you know, it's kind of a double whammy of hypocrisy. Here are these guys who are preaching the free market, and we must always respect the free market, but if something goes wrong for the guys who own the capital, then we become socialists, right? And the same thing is true for the war. Who's paying for the war? Who's paying Blackwater? Who's paying all Lockheed Martin and these companies? It's our tax dollars.
And yet, fast forward to January 2009, and if the Democrats win and it's President Clinton or President Obama, they're committed on paper to starting to pull troops home. What is the actual likelihood that this country will see an end to the war in the next term?
I don't know, and you know, it's an interesting question, because I think the first thing you have to fight is the notion of inevitability of all this. I mean, the first thing you have to do is say, well, this is just inevitable, and this is the way the world is. It's more and more corporate. There's nothing that can be done to stop it. This will never change. We're going to be in the Middle East for the next 30 years.
And this just induces paralysis.
We're going to use it as an aircraft carrier to strip mine the country. There'll be endless wars. And you just, at some point, you become that zonk spectator on the conveyor belt. So I think the first thing is to just regain your sense of, the way I look at it is, first thing is to keep my sense of outrage and my sense of independence. And then try to, you know, inspire that in other people, and then work within a very, very flawed, fundamentally screwed up system to try to make change. I don't know any other option.
I want to ask you about your own funding model for doing this kind of work, because you clearly see movies like War, Inc. as what you were put here to do, or what you can contribute.
So I wanted to express it. I wanted to funnel my outrage into something creative, and the information from great journalists and people around, and just put something out there. I think doing things is important. Otherwise, you're just talking.
But in this town, you know, you need to have cachet and cash.
Yeah.
And I think you've got a sort of informal funding model where you do big budget movies for big money, and you use the cachet and the cash to try to make movies that you feel are your contribution.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Is that how you do it?
Yeah, I think it's right. You sort of leverage some box office stuff into some other things.
Are there roles that you've turned down because you weren't comfortable with the politics of the film?
I think what happens is, what I try to do is I'll try to find things that are kind of both commercial and, you know, good commercial movies. And if I can do those, and then I can do my little passion projects, you know, that's a pretty good deal for an artist or someone who wants to be an artist.
Tell me about your own political awakening in the environment in which you grew up.
I grew up in Chicago, and I grew up with, I guess, like a lot of folks, where there was just a bunch of talk about politics and history and social justice and art, you know, around the dinner table, and that was just sort of part of the environment. And I think my mother went and worked with Dorothy Day at those soup kitchens. I remember sitting around the dinner table, and you know, you'd go off, be playing baseball, and you came back in, and our mother would make us talk around the dinner table, and she would tell us oh, well, you know, Dan and Phil are going back to jail. And we say, well, why are they going to jail, Mom? And they say, well, he and his group threw lamb's blood on the Pentagon steps, or they went and broke in and took an axe to a nuclear warhead as a sign of protest, and they're going back in, and the judge is, you know, they're going to do 18 months.
People globally hear a lot coming from the United States about how America needs to recover its good reputation in the world. I'm trying to think from an American perspective, speaking to a global audience. What is your vision of what it would mean for America to recover its international reputation, its standing?
To actively do some good in the world, and to actively at least move towards being the benevolent empire that it claims to be, you know? And I think even though that hasn't been true in many cases, you know, it has been true in some. And
okay, I'm just stuck on benevolent empire. You think such a thing is not an oxymoron? That
I think it is
possible?
I don't want to get into easy black and white judgments about America or any other country being the sole good guy or bad guy, and getting into the dialectic of that. I don't want to get into reflective anti-Americanism, like just instinctual, but I don't want to underestimate, you know, the crimes that democratic capitalism has committed, nor would I want to minimize the crimes that communism has committed.
Every empire is summed up in Rome. The Romans, Hausa, stewards of the human race, torchbearers of culture. You and I, centurions, honor bound to defend civilization against the barbarians.
Let's cut the walk in. I like killing people as much as the next guy, but I signed up to kill the bad ones. Health clinics, trade unionists, journalists, agricultural co-ops, Catholic liberation theologians, impoverished Colombian coffee farmers. These are the barbarians, the depraved opponents of civilization. We turn Central America into a graveyard.
Your work, what we've been talking about today, your film War Inc., are harshly critical of where America is headed and the logic of it.
Right.
What you're saying is that there's a logic that's driving it.
Right.
So when we talk about recovering America's reputation, you're talking about turning back the tide.
There is no doubt that over the last 35 years, the forces that want to privatize the world have been winning out. So there's a lot of work to be done in a long corrective march the other way. But I just wouldn't want to minimize the fact that this country or any country or people in it or individuals can do good in the world. And I think by having short conversations or sound bites where you're, you know, pro-corporate, anti-imperialist, you know, you're a Democrat and the Democrats are this part of the same system, or you're just reflectively anti-American.
You think that's a danger?
I think, well, it's just a thing that kind of pacifies you so that you don't have to interact and engage with imperfect structures and systems. And I think it feels good to do that, but I think that it, you know, those sorts of easy labels, they just let the bad guys win.
They work for sound bites, though.
They work for sound bites, but I think that the conversation has to be a long one and a meaningful one. I think, to me, world citizenship is where we have to be going. And the fact that individuals in America can be a part of that and get away from this kind of corporate ethics or this feeling of inevitability that there's just nothing that can be done. It's just too much, the propaganda and the feeling of inevitability of empire. You know, we can't fight back against it, but I would reject the notions that any nation is all good or all bad. I just think policies and regimes have some good and bad in it, and the last 7 years has been horrible in the United States.
Thank you for having a long conversation with us.
Thank you.
It was a real pleasure.